What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports here to give you the edge for this 11-19 NBA slate on DraftKings. Cannot wait to break it down. We have officially hit 10,000 subscribers, guys. Thank you, everybody, for your support. It was an overwhelming feeling last night. Right when we got off the live stream is when we hit the 10K mark. So, guys, just thank you so much for all your support. Crazy to think that 2 years ago, starting my very first YouTube channel ever, 300 or so subscribers within the first, month, and I thought we were hitting big time. And now that we're officially at 10K, it's insane. It's just crazy to sit here and think that 10,000 of you guys actually sat back, hit that subscribe button, and you guys have officially believed in everything that we present as a channel, and you appreciate the analysis, the research, with not just me, but all the analysts involved here. Next goal is obviously 20K, and then, after that, we want to hit 100K. I think that's when you officially get the little bronze logo you get to hang up in your office. That would be pretty cool. But nonetheless, guys, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and dive right into this NBA 9-game slate. All right, so last night, I actually did very, very well. I got third place in a smaller GPP out of like 53 people. I'll show you guys that line. Well, this is the exact lineup here. I played that lineup in smaller GPPs and in cash and double ups, and then in my bigger GPPs, I got different. I'll also show you those. I actually cashed in all three of my lineups as well. So overall, I made like $300. I believe the last video I uploaded, I had like $1,700 in my account. So I made like $350 overall. So let's go over my success from last night. The first part of all my videos, I'm going to be covering my segment on how I approached last night's slate, or the last slate before I upload the video. And it gives you guys a sense of direction on how to approach your slates in terms of contest selection. What I do, again, transparency is everything in DFS. You guys, if you guys follow some of these no-name channels, you're looking for transparency, and if they can succeed in the long term, I'm here to show you guys that I can and that I have the past 3 years. 2 years. The first 2 years I got into DFS, I did not. But since then, I've cleaned up and I've learned how to play DFS myself. So let's go ahead and recap last night. This was my double up lineup. And I know you guys are going to look at this lineup and you're going to think I'm crazy. I did fade Jokic, and it was more of what I thought was going to have a higher owned lineup combination than fading Jokic. I think he ended up being like 49-50% in double ups. I knew I had to get Pat Bev, Garland, Wade, and Rubio in there, and it was going to make for a very awkward build. I already knew that going into this, but I knew those three guys were going to be very heavily owned. That being said, it looks like a lot of people actually ended up on my lineup with Kyle Kuzma as their last piece. He was actually lower owned in GPPs. Then in cash, he ended up being 20.4%. So this lineup construction, I don't know if it ended up being higher owned than the Jokic combo, but it actually did better than all the Jokic lineups. So I was very pleasantly surprised here. It was Garland, D'Lo was 20.2%, Wade 38.9%. Again, this is double up ownership. Kuzma 20.4%. Harrell was the big guy I had to have. I knew having him in my lineup was going to change and change my lineup and not be able to land on Jokic, which had Pat Bev here in the util instead of Jokic. Rubio, higher owned. Anthony Edwards, 50.7%. And then Pat Bev was my last piece here, 86.3% owned. He was the highest owned here on the slate. So going over here is the exact same lineup that I had in the smaller GPPs. This got third place out of 53. Yep, 53 people. So this is a smaller GPP I played. Anything lower than 100 people is considered a smaller GPP in my eyes. You always throw it into a double up and you put it in a small GPP. That way you can capitalize on the upside if it does well. Never throw a cash lineup into a bigger GPP because it's going to be duped and the ownership just won't push you over that line. You literally have to hit every single person exactly right. It just doesn't make sense to play these types of lineups in bigger GPPs. You're not capitalizing on the lower ownership. Nonetheless, got third place there. And now let's take a look here at my three lineups and how I got different. This was my best scoring one on the night. This one got $170. This was a $20 entry, I believe. Sorry, this was only $70. I won $170 overall over my three lineups. So this one won $70. Where I got different was Scotty Barnes and Reggie Jackson and also Ken Burch. So there were a lot of center options. So I got different. I locked in Ken Burch, I believe, in 2 out of my 3 GPPs because I knew that would be getting different. And he did very well. He covered that price tag, got to 22.75 points. And in terms of value, did better than Jokic. So as you can see, that ended up having me land on Adebayo. Can you imagine if I just got different there with Adebayo? He ended up being relatively higher owned. But yeah, I had some lower owned guys here in this bigger GPP. This was my second GPP lineup. Let's see where I got different here. I got different with Kuzma, and I also got different again with Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes was the guy I decided to get different with, and it's just so funny because I think I ended up going about 67% of Rubio in my GPPs, and it's just crazy to think, like, if that's the one place I got different as opposed to Scotty Barnes and some of the center options, I would have cashed out so much easier. I think I was off about 20 something points here off of first place. So if I just got different in the Rubio spot, I could have easily taken down all these GPPs and walked away with the $2,000 extra dollars. Nonetheless, did cash my last one as well. I'll show you where I got different in that GPP. This was my lowest scoring one. I did get different there with Scotty Barnes. It looks like I had 100% Scotty Barnes. It's just the way the lineup construction kind of came together. I did get different with Ken Burch, and then Rudy Gobert again, the last piece. Man, these guys are underperforming in my 8K range. If I would have just gotten different with Rubio as opposed to Rudy Gobert, I would have cashed out so much easier. Anyway, I made a lot of money on that slate. Those are the nights that we look out for. So as you guys think back to my other videos, I ended up losing $20 the previous 2 nights, and then I made about $350. So that's the way DFS works. You're going to lose more often than not in the amount of times that you'll play DFS. But when you do win, it makes up for all those losses and then a lot more. Again, that's how you play DFS. You have to have thick skin when playing DFS. Trust me, really thick skin. You have to get over the tilts. You have to use alcohol. Just kidding. Don't actually do that. And you guys have to get through the bad nights together. All right. Nonetheless, all that information is provided on dgfantasy.com. We'll be updating our ownerships, projections, all that good stuff right before lock, and that's what helped us build our cash lamps and get different GBPs. Again, $20 a month gets you access to all of our cheat sheets on dgfantasy.com. With that being said, let's go ahead and focus on this 9-game NBA slate. We're going to go through the injury report here. This slate is actually pretty straightforward as of right now, but depending injury news can definitely shift things. With the very first game here with Golden State, we do have Steph Curry. He is questionable. That will change the entire landscape of that team. Obviously, being a heavy usage guy, guys like Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, whoever starts at the point guard position is going to get a heavy boost in minutes and usage there for the Golden State Warriors. Nothing really going on with the Detroit Pistons. Kelly Olynyk is still out, and all the price tags have been adjusted to reflect that. With the Pacers, Duarte is questionable. If he is ruled out, it's going to give some slight boosts in minutes there to some of the other guards. Not really too much interest there with the Pacers. Charlotte, nothing going on. PJ Washington has been out for a bit. LeBron James is questionable here for the Lakers. If he does play, then yeah, I'm completely off these guys. All the price tags really have been adjusted here for the Lakers. With Boston, we do have to pay attention to them because Jaylen Brown is questionable. Same thing with Robert Williams. If those guys do play, then yeah, I'm pretty much off the Boston Celtics as well. Looking at Orlando, if Jalen Suggs is ruled out, then there's some slight boosts here in terms of minutes to some of these other guards. I do have some interest in the Pacers if he does sit, but not much. With Brooklyn, Claxton, Joe Harris, obviously Kyrie Irving and Millsap are still out. So I do have some interest here with Brooklyn because the price tags did not come up as much as they should have with the Brooklyn Nets. Going down to the Clippers here, we have Batum, Johnson, Leonard, Marcus Morris, Preston Winslow still out. The minutes have been reflected, and the price tags really haven't come up as much here with the Clippers, so I do have some interest in the Clippers here. With the Pelicans, nothing going on. Zion's been out the entire season so far. Nothing really going on with OKC because Trey Mann doesn't play that much anyway. Nothing going on with Milwaukee. We're seeing that injury report. Chicago, same exact thing. Vooch is still out. Does reflect some of the minutes here with some of the starters. Not too much interest though because the price tags have been adjusted upward. With the Denver Nuggets here, we have Jamal Murray still out, Michael Porter still out, but Will Barton is playing, so that does affect the usage there. I do have some interest still because because the price tags still haven't come up here on the Denver Nuggets, so we will be visiting that picture here in a little bit. With the Dallas Mavericks, Doncic and Kleber are still out, Doncic being one of the heavier usage guys in the NBA. Still have interest in some of these price tags. They didn't get bumped up as much as I wanted them to. But with the Suns, it being a lower pace game, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the ownership comes out. I have so much interest in the Dallas Mavericks right now if they do stay low in terms of ownership, but I do think they're going to be on the chalky side, so we will be visiting that picture to talk about it here in a little bit. With the Suns, nothing going on there. Ayton is now active, and I'm pretty much I'm off all these price tags. And then with Toronto, we have Achua, Anunoby out, and Watanabe. So I do have some interest here. This one is also interesting because this is the last game on the slate. So I don't know if these guys are going to have a ton of ownership, but there are some obvious plays, at least that stand out to me. Again, we'll be visiting that picture. We don't have ownership projections as of right now. I kind of like deciphering through the slate without ownership projections because I like my raw, unedited thoughts and what should be chalk. But right now, these guys are carrying relatively lower price tags than what I think they should be covering, and they play a ton of minutes here. With the Sacramento Kings, nothing going on there. Let's now visit the picture as a whole. Right now, these are our custom projections inputted in, so I'm going to sort by value, go game by game to see what I like. Let's start out with the Brooklyn Nets, because I do have some interest there. The price tags did not come up. We're taking off Paul Millsap, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, and Claxton. One guy I want to talk about here is going to be Patty Mills, averaging 0.79 fantasy points per minute with these guys off the court, and he is projected 33 minutes. As you guys can see, he's been getting a longer leash in terms of minutes, played 32, 31, 35 minutes his past 3 games, and he's covered his price tag so easily. We have him projected for 26.07 points and the best point per dollar value on the slate. I do think Patty Mills is going to be one of the chalkier guys on the slate. Bruce Brown is another option here to consider, $4,200. Right now, he comes out to 24.94 points in terms of projection. But honestly, I think his ownership is going to be relatively low just because Bruce Brown historically is not a good fantasy point per minute player, thus making him a 5.9 point per dollar value. I still like him in terms of value. LaMarcus Aldridge is another interesting guy here. Kind of is all over the place in terms of minutes. I played 22, 9, and then 30. I don't know what's going on there with LaMarcus Aldridge, but I also think he's going to be carrying lower ownership. I do have extreme interest here in Patty Mills. I think he's going to be chalky, and I do have some GPP interest here in Bruce Brown and LaMarcus Aldridge. Let's move on to the Toronto Raptors. We're kind of jumping around here because I do think that they're going to carry some kind of chalk because they're playing extreme minutes without Anunoby, playing 38 minutes a game, Watanabe, and Achua. So they have some holes to fill here and a lot of minutes to be played. Gary Trent, right now, projected 37 minutes last night. He played a ton of minutes in a somewhat competitive matchup here, 33 minutes, and he dropped 42.5 points against a really good defensive team. Now, Sacramento, historically not a good defensive team. They are going to push the pace right now. The Raptors are projected to score 108 points, which is above their season average. Again, just taking a look at this guy's game log. 30, we can keep going back as far as we want. 43, 34, 37, 36, 35. This guy is an extreme lock to play over 34-ish minutes. Last night was, again, he probably didn't play the rest of the fourth quarter there because the game was a relative blowout. So at 6K, he has to drop exactly 30 fantasy points, and he's pretty much hit that, dating back to as far as I was naming off the minutes here, in a very good high pace game. Right now, we have him projected as a 6.6 point per dollar value, projected around 40 points, and I absolutely love Gary Trent. If he's carrying lower ownership, then I do like him as a GPP option. If he's carrying higher ownership, then I love him in cash in general. And I think you can get different by playing some of these other Toronto Raptors, assuming they also have ceiling potential games. Scotty Barnes is another guy that's going to be playing a ton of minutes here. 38 projected minutes, comes out to a 5.6 point per dollar value. Same thing with Fred VanVleet. He also came down in the price tag after dropping 45.5 points in the last matchup against Utah. The one thing I love with all these Toronto Raptors is they all play so many minutes. Right now, Siakam's projected for 38. I don't know if that's going to hold true because, again, he only played 31 minutes last night. If he did play the entire fourth, then I guess that's closer to 38, but I still think he doesn't play over 35 minutes. Another guy that we have to be paying attention to, especially after last night in a very bad matchup versus Rudy Gobert, is Khem Burch at 3K. Playing 24 minutes, does have a better matchup here. Comes out to a 6 point per dollar value. Historically on the season, he's averaging 0.75 fantasy points per minute. He's a little bit closer to about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute if you go back to last season. So yes, I do think he can get it done. At a 3K price tag, I think he's actually going to carry some of the ownership. So Gary Trent and Khem Burch are by far my favorite options on this roster. I do like Scotty Barnes, VanVleet, and Siakam for GPPs if they carry lower ownership. I do think Gary Trent will end up carrying a decent amount of ownership, and same thing with Khem Burch. Now let's move on to a very obvious team here with the Dallas Mavericks. They are without Doncic, and as you guys can see, the usage rates fly up the charts when you take these guys off the court. Tim Hardaway is impacted the most. Jalen Brunson, looking down the list here, the Porzingis. Boban technically gets a boost in usage, but he doesn't play. So when we convert this over to a price tag perspective, Tim Hardaway at a 5.5K price tag did play 35 plus minutes. Last game he played 37, shot the ball 23 times, shot 9 of 23, even shot miserably, and easily covered this price tag at a 5.3K price tag. He only got a $200 price increase, which is why I said I don't think that the price tags have adjusted accordingly here for the Dallas Mavericks. And honestly, he's one of my favorite overall plays on the slate. His price tag is still very soft. He's averaging 1.07 fantasy points per minute without Doncic on the court, and he's projected a ton of minutes. Right now, this game is expected to be relatively close, only a 7-point spread, so if they keep it within 7 points, then yes, these guys should be playing the entire fourth quarter. They should be playing the entire game game, and I really like the upside with these Dallas Mavericks. Again, I don't think that their price tags came up as much as they should have. Another guy that's actually projecting well, Dwight Powell. He's actually averaging 1 fantasy point per minute with Doncic off the court, projected in 22 minutes. I guess that's just the way kind of the rotations work, and I guess he just performs better without Doncic on the court. Makes sense since he's grabbing more rebounds and stuff. Comes out to a 6.5 point per dollar value. I don't think that Dwight Powell is going to be chalky whatsoever, so I do like him for GPPs as a value option. Porzingis' price tag did not come up enough. If I go back to the chart here, he's still averaging a tremendous amount of fantasy points without Doncic on the floor, averaging 1.48 fantasy points per minute. I think that's a bit skewed based on what he did last game, but you can expect he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and the offense is going to be driven around Porzingis. Comes out to a 6.3 point per dollar value, and the exact same thing can be said about Jalen Brunson. Love both of these guys. It's going to look a lot like last slate. I do think Hardaway's going to carry a lot of ownership. I think that Porzingis and Brunson are going to split in terms of ownership just because of their pay-up options. But I do like all these guys in cash, except for Dwight Powell. Reggie Bullock, definitely a GPP option, comes out to a 6 point per dollar value, only averaging about 0.67 fantasy points per minute and about 27 projected minutes is what we have him at, therefore making him a decent GPP option. The next team I want to go to is actually the Los Angeles Clippers, and these guys have been flying under the radar in terms of ownership here the past couple slates, and I really do like them. They're just like the Toronto Raptors in terms of their minutes. Their guys are just playing a ton of minutes just because of the rotations. Paul George averaging 1.51 fantasy points per minute when you take Batum and the rest of the gang off the court. Reggie Jackson averaging 1.06 fantasy points per minute, and also Eric Bledsoe at 0.93. Again, when you look at the minute upside here, Reggie Jackson's been playing comfortably over 30 minutes the past 4 or 5 games. I really like his minute upside here. Right now he's projected at 37 minutes, a 6.4 price tag, and it actually went down from last game, and a decently pace up matchup here versus Pelicans, a 6.1 point per dollar value. And I do like Reggie Jackson. I don't think he's going to carry that much ownership, but I do like him as a GPP pivot. Zubac at 5.1K has been very efficient, averaging 1.03 fantasy points per minute since he's been out on the floor. Projected about 29 minutes. It's going to be him or Hartenstein, who always does easily cover their price tag. It really depends on the matchup. But Zubac here at 29 minutes, like him at probably lower ownership at a 5.1K price tag. And then, yeah, I really do like Paul George. I think he fits a lot of builds here. 10.3K, like him as a pay-up option. Averaging 1.51 fantasy points per minute here and projected about 38 minutes. So if he plays the entire game, love him to cover his price tag. Comes out to a 5.6 point per dollar value. Then yeah, Eric Bledsoe is definitely going to be more of a GPP option. I don't know why his price tag went up and Reggie Jackson's went down, because Eric Bledsoe actually had a bad last game. But yeah, I also do like him in terms of the minutes. I do like Reggie Jackson more, and Eric Bledsoe is averaging a lesser fantasy point per minute here to start the season. And then last but not least, we do have the Denver Nuggets. I want to talk about them. And mainly just Jokic. Jokic last night had, I think it was 46 points after the first half, and ended up with 57.5. I actually went to bed knowing that Jokic was just going to kill me because he was 50% owned in the majority of contests. That being said, Jokic, again, is in a fantastic matchup versus Tony Bradley. The matchup just makes so much sense here in a very competitive matchup, and they are they're still without Michael Porter, so that does give him a slight usage bump here. Projected 36 minutes. He's going to be your obvious pay-up option, especially with all the value here on the slate. It's going to be him and Paul George. I do think Jokic is going to carry a decent amount of ownership here. Right now, that over-under is at a 211.5. The Clippers are in a 215, so it'll be interesting to see how the ownership kind of shifts out, but I do think that Jokic is going to be the safer option here at a 5.8K or 5.8 point per dollar value. Monty Morris, we talk about him every single video, and he just continues to hit value. I do like his minute upside, just like the fact that he's playing without Porter. He does get a slight usage bump, averaging 1.07 fantasy points per minute, so I do like that as a decent GPP option. He always carries lower ownership. The rest of these guys don't really have too much interest in. Aaron Gordon averaging 0.78 fantasy points per minute on the season. I hate him just in terms of his upside. He never produces in terms of fantasy points. And then Barton will also carry lower ownership. He did come off a questionable tag last game and played 34 minutes. So we can expect about 34 minutes here in this contest as well at lower ownership. But yeah, that will wrap up the slate. If I had to give you guys some locks, I do like Tim Hardaway. Patty Mills is your obvious paydown option. I do like Gary Trent, and I think that you land on either one of Brunson or Porzingis, if not both. I just think that game script, the lower over-under, is going to probably make you land on one or the other in terms of ownership. And then also, if you have the salary pay all the way down to Jokic, that's going to be that's going to be my fifth lock. So I'm locking in either Brunson or Porzingis, and then coming back here with Jokic. I don't know how the lineup construction is going to work with that. But nonetheless, I crunched out 100 builds here based on some of my favorite plays and projections. And these are my exposures. I do have a lot of Hardaway, a lot of Porzingis, Gary Trent, Jokic, Patty Mills, all the guys we talked about, Brunson. And that's where it cuts off. And that's where you start to get different here with Reggie Jackson, Powell, Franz Wagner, I think is the way you say it. With Orlando, he's also showing pretty decent. That's one guy I forgot to talk about. He's definitely going to be more of a GPP play. Has been playing tremendous minutes at a 4.3K price tag and has been consistently hitting his value. So that's another option just to kind of mention. But that's it, guys. That will cover the slate. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course, smash that like button for all of our future NBA content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.